Are you ready? Let's go!
Don't you sometimes just want to talk about everything? You know, there's days when you can just talk about anything. Need to sit back and chat about nothing at all? Nothing But Julie, coming at you with fun and creative topics and interviews.
Did you hear Julie's podcast? She's got the greatest topics.
Come join the chat about everything, anything, and nothing. So unwind and tune in to Nothing But Julie. Great topics and cool interviews with some pretty awesome people. And now, without further delay, here's Nothing But Julie.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. This is Julie Schrager. I am your host for Nothing But Julie. So glad that you guys could tag along for my little journey today. Well, happy hump day. And for some of you, happy inauguration day. So, I don't know. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you elated? There's a lot of mixed emotions going on today. And I get it. Some of you love Trump. Some of you hate Trump. Some of you hate Biden, love Biden. Some of you are in the middle. Some of you don't care. You know, that's what makes America great. You guys have your own decisions, your own opinions. I am tuning in. Right now, I don't know when you are listening to this. This podcast of mine drops on Wednesdays. So depending on when you're listening to this, you might have already watched the inauguration, or Biden might already be in office. And if you're listening to this before the inauguration, then all I have to say is I am looking for a bit of a change. I'm hoping that, you know, the divisiveness in our country definitely can change. You know, I think that there's a lot of things that have transpired that are going to require a lot of turnaround. Our country certainly was not this divided before Trump came into play, and I think that it has damaged us, and I don't know how long the repercussions will last. I'm hoping that they don't last. I don't know. I think that once you open up Pandora's box, it's very, very hard to get back to some sense of what, I don't want to use the word normal should be, because I think that we are living in a time of new normal, but I'm hoping that the country can turn back around, and maybe those who hate so much can learn to be better than that, because hate doesn't resolve anything, anything. I think that it's very important that we all just, can't we all just get along? So my hope is that we can all just, I keep saying this, you know, find peace. It's really important that we all find peace and stay happy. So it is a good day for me, whether, and I say this every single time, nobody knows my political affiliation. However, because of everything that has transpired with Trump and his inciting such hate, I do hope that can turn around, because everybody is ready to start a fight, it seems. Everyone is ready to, you know, and it's been like this for a while now. So I can only hope, regardless of what you think, that you at least agree that the way that things have been done over the last 4 years is not the right way to do it. You believe in Trump, you like him, so be it. But if you like him so much, then that tells me that you're agreeing with what he's done. And that's a horrible thing, to agree with a man who incites such hate and divisiveness. You can agree with maybe the things that he might have done for the good, which were few and far between. But I don't think that inciting hate is something that is appropriate or necessary. So anyway, moving on. Have you ever, and this is more probably for the ladies than men, because men really are not as bad as women in this respect, but have you ever been with a family member or a friend who, without realizing it, is so insistent on being right? And let me explain what I mean. You speak to a friend or a family member and, you're just talking about whatever, how you feel about whatever. And there's always an opinion that you've never asked for, or advice that you never asked for. Has that ever happened to you? Happens to me, and I mean happens. I could be on the phone with somebody, and I could be telling this particular person about, how I feel about whatever, and instead of even just pacifying me, I get an opinion like, well, I wouldn't do this, or let me tell you what I would do, or, and in doing that, it makes me feel like my feelings are not justified. And there's something very wrong with that. I don't need anyone to justify how I feel. I feel how I feel. But you giving me your opinion or telling me you don't agree is not going to change how I feel. I am going to still believe what I believe. And it's kind of annoying when you are talking to someone, telling them about how you feel, and the other person is like, well, let me tell you, I don't feel this way. I didn't ask you if you felt this way, and I didn't ask you if your thought process is different than mine. I didn't ask you if you think I'm right or wrong. It's very belittling and patronizing. And I never do that. Ever. And I'm not saying that, follow my advice. I'm saying that when you trust someone enough to speak to them about things that are going on in your life, you don't like having this backpack of right and wrong. Like the other day, I was upset about a situation that had transpired, and then I found out the next day that it wasn't entirely true, and I didn't have time to process how I felt. Maybe I'm overdoing it with how I feel, or underdoing it, or whatever, but I didn't even have time to think about it. And I just happened to see this online, and the person I was talking to, I had just mentioned it, and before I could even take a breath and even, search through how I felt about it, this other person is like, well, I wouldn't feel that way. This is how I would feel, and I would question this, and I would question that, and I'm like, and then all of a sudden, I am feeling like, okay, so I don't have the right to feel this way. I am almost 52-year-old woman. Don't tell me how you think I should feel. If I want to be angry, I'm going to be angry. If I want to be upset, I'll be upset. I don't need you to psychoanalyze me like you're a paid psychologist. And this is all the time. Every time I talk about anything, it's constant. Well, I don't feel this way, or maybe you should feel this way. It's like, I am my own person. I don't need you to tell me how I should feel. So my question is, have you ever been in a position like this? And what do you do? Do you confront that person or people? Do you just, let it build until you're just ready to kill them? No matter how nice I've been, and I have spoken to this person about this, it just continues and continues and continues. Because, sometimes when you tell people, that they're acting a certain way and you don't appreciate it, they recognize it enough to where they now know that they have to kind of keep an eye on it because it's annoying and they might change. But what about when you have no idea that you're doing it? Even if you've told that person that they're doing it, but they're so far beyond knowing that they even act this way, how are you supposed to, what? You're supposed to say, remember that thing that we spoke about the other day about how you are? Well, you're doing it right now. What, the rest of their life I'm going to have to say, hey, I know you probably don't realize it. No, I mean, I think that I would be kind and thoughtful in the process of how I'm going to tell them. And if they continue, I might then remind them of the discussion and say, hey, you're kind of doing that again. And I just wanted to, make you aware that, blah, blah, blah is fine. But once you've told them and then you've reminded them, you get to a point, I think, where you're like, okay, I am going to have to reduce the amount of times I speak to this person or reduce the amount of things I tell this person because they're so opinionated and they feel that, I want their advice, that it's getting in the way of my relationship. So now you either don't talk to them as much as you used to, or you don't talk to them about certain subjects that you used to talk to them about. And is that really any kind of a relationship? I mean, is that something that you would want to still have now that you have to tiptoe and walk on eggshells? Is that something that you're willing to do? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if I'd be willing to, I don't know. So I'm just curious, for those of you that are listening to this podcast, what do you do? How do you feel about the situation? And have you been in this situation before? Did you ever have to do something to where you had to speak to someone about, disagreements? I will tell you that, and maybe this comes with age, but there have been a few times as I've gotten older that I have had to pull away from relationships, friendships, because I couldn't deal with, how they were behaving, how they were acting. And it was taking a toll on me. And it kind of got to the point where I was like, you know what? This is just not something that I am in the market for right now. I can't keep doing this. And that was it. I had to pull away because no matter how many times I would discuss it with them, it just didn't end. And it really, really got in the middle of the relationship. So, what do you think is the best thing to do when you actually... It's almost like you have a one-way relationship, that your feelings are not taken into consideration. So, what do? What's the best thing to do? And yes, I am looking for your advice this time. You can go on to my Facebook page or Twitter, Instagram. You can email me, nothingbutjulie@gmail.com, and let me know how you feel about this. Because I know I'm not the only one that goes through this. And what about family? What do you do when, you have a family member or two or three or four that you love very much, but they're getting in the way of the relationship because they're so opinionated or giving unsolicited advice when you're not asking? I think that many of us almost feel like that is what we're supposed to do. I don't think anybody is doing it on purpose. There's a lot of people, especially women, who are healers, and I think that they automatically become a person that just wants to help and wants to heal. And without realizing that they're giving advice, they just go ahead and do it. And they don't mean anything by it. They don't mean that there's, you know, something that they can do to resolve. But I think that a lot of people do that because they're just trying to help and they don't mean any harm by it. But what do you do when it's not something that you want to hear? How do you tell them delicately? I just don't know. Because most of the time when there's someone that, I don't know, like for me, I feel as though I would ask first, like, would you like me to give you some advice or hear my opinion, or are you just looking, for a shoulder to cry on or for an ear to listen? I do that because I know that how I felt about it, and so I'm more cognizant of other people's feelings. And I'm not being overly sensitive either. I know that sometimes I just want to be listened to. I just want someone to listen to me. I have to vent. I'm just, I'm not looking for you to tell me what's right and what's wrong. Just listen. And haven't you done that in the past? Haven't you just wanted to be listened to? That's why they call it venting. So let's talk about this. What about when you're the person that people have come to? I'm talking about you women because I think that we are it's in our DNA to be healers, some of us. But how are you when let's say your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or spouse, significant other comes to you feeling upset about something? What is it that you do? Do you interrupt them without realizing it? Do you wait for them to stop talking? Do you give them advice? Do you ask first? I'm just curious what other people do. When I was younger, many of my friends and my husband's friends would always come to me. They would say I should have been a psychologist. Why? Because I can listen to what you're saying and give good advice. But they would come to me when they were having troubles and they would need an ear. And I would give them advice because that's what they wanted. And I kind of fell into that genre. And then I just remember one day a friend of mine said, not verbatim, but you're my very good friend. I love you. Remember, she started off with that. And then she was like, can you please just listen to me and let me talk and vent? Because I'm just really upset right now and I just need to talk, but I'm really not looking for any kind of advice or opinion. Please don't be upset with me. I'm just, because you do give such great advice, but right now I just need to vent. And she said it in such a way where it was like, sure, no problem. I also think that it's the approach. And so it was at that point that I was like, oh, wow. Okay, I get it. I see now that I am always giving advice or opinions and that some people just don't want that. And that's what prompted me to ask beforehand, is it okay for me to give you some advice? Or do you want my opinion? Or do you just want someone to listen? So that I decided to do that on my own without the help of anyone or question if that's something I should do. But now the shoe is on the other foot, and I have someone who won't stop. And I just don't know how to approach it. And some of you might say, oh, well, why don't you take your own advice and tell them, okay, I have, and this is the dilemma, that I've said it, and this person still is doing it. So I don't know what to do, guys. I need advice. What do you think? I mean, I think it's different when it comes to friends and maybe family. Your family has known you longer than any of your friends have known you. So I think that they kind of put themselves into that realm of advice givers. Well, what do you do when you're out with a friend or your spouse and something happens and you're total opposites? I mean, type A and type B. I'll give you an example. I am very type A. Well, hold on. Let me rephrase that. I used to be type A. I have calmed down significantly. What do I mean by calmed down? Type A, very outgoing, very go, 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 go all the time until you literally drop. And aggressive, but in a good way with work. Aggressive to where I like to make changes. I like to be the change. I like to help other people make the change. It doesn't mean that if you don't want me to change it, that I'll be pissed. No. I like to be challenged. And I get very, or I used to get very angry very fast. So as I got older, I learned to tame the inner beast, especially having a child. I learned by having a child to be much more patient. I learned not to, jump on someone as soon as they say something. I am not as reactive as I used to be. But I'm still type A. I'll never be like my husband. He is the extreme type B. So I marry someone who's not only complete opposite, but just like I was high A and he was high B. So we're talking two totally different ends of the spectrum. So the other day, last week actually, something had happened. We were out and there was this man who was being very loud. We're outside, we're having dinner on date night. And actually it wasn't a week ago. It doesn't matter. It was 5 days ago. Anyway, so there was this man who was being very loud. I mean, we were socially distanced, so he was at least 6 feet, if not more, away from the two of us. But I don't know, maybe it was the way his voice was being carried. He was behind us facing me. And I could hear him belittling his teenage son. Not just belittling, but damaging belittling. Saying things like, I thought that you were a better person than this. I'm so disappointed in you. You don't try enough. You're lazy. You do nothing for yourself or for anyone. You're such a disappointment. I'm just like the worst. Just not nice things. Now I'm out on date night. I don't want to fucking hear this. A. B. I don't want to hear you talk to your kid that way. Hey, did you ever think that maybe if you probably were a decent dad and spoke to him with kindness and positivity, that might help? I'm not saying give in to the kid. I'm saying be positive. That always helps. But maybe, Dad, there's a reason why your son is the way he is. Maybe it's because you treat him like shit. Anyway, moving on. I was getting so angry. Did you ever have two emotions at the same time? Complete anger and complete sadness. So at one point, I turned around when I knew their food came. Knew it was a good time just to see what this guy looked like. And there he is, this big, muscular, tiny man. And I thought to myself, okay. I immediately assessed the situation. Like, this is a man who didn't achieve what he wanted to in life. And now he's giving it to his son. Like men that coach, like they turn the whole thing into like a major competition. And then I saw this kid, this almost sweet, innocent kid with his head down, almost as though the dad was given an enormous amount of power and it made him feel good. Maybe he was bullied when he was younger. Now he's doing it to his son. So I'm talking to my husband and I'm like, this man he's being so mean to his son and da, 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 da. And I'm telling him everything he's saying and I'm getting all worked up. And what does my husband do? He just sits there listening to me. He doesn't have any reaction. He doesn't respond to me. And I'm like, hello, don't you have something to say? He's like, I don't know what their situation is. Yeah, it's not nice what he's saying, but, I'm not going to get all heated over it. And I was like, ah! I saw red. Now that is when the type A and type B personalities are not good for one another. There have been more times than none or than any that the opposite part of the two of us has been a huge plus for us. But once every now and then, the opposite of personalities of the two of us really come into play, like the other day. And so I didn't want to ruin my night. I wanted to just say, oh, Julie, that's how he is. It's been, almost 30 years, for crying out loud. But this one really got my goat. And I said to him, just for once, can't you just see it from my end? Can't you see how upset I am over this? And so he said that he knows that I'm upset about it. But he didn't feel that he needed to be upset about it. He said just because he's not showing any kind of emotion doesn't mean that, he doesn't feel bad for the kid. It's just we both react in different ways. Now, he knows me by now, that he knows that sometimes he needs to say certain things to me like that for me to be like, okay, and then that's the end of that. Otherwise, it'll turn into a big fight and it's not worth it. But when he said that, it made me realize how opposite so many of us are and how we all do have different opinions. And he's also learned not to always say something and give an opinion and just let me vent. And he doesn't always know when I want an opinion or advice. But I've been with this man for almost 30 years, so he kind of knows how I roll. He knows. So I can't get upset with him if he's not giving me advice or if he's not giving me an opinion until I say, look, I need your opinion. But it just made me realize how so many people are different and opposite, that yeah, you know, if you love someone as a friend or a family member, you have to accept them wholeheartedly for who they are. It's just very hard when you're opposite and there's something that bugs the shit out of you that can actually be detrimental to you emotionally, like someone giving unsolicited advice or opinions, and not being able to see through that. And I actually looked this up online, and it all says the same stuff, you know, to say very kindly in a nice way, but matter-of-factly to the person how you feel, and, you know, be nice and kind. But I've done it, and it's still happening. So I realized the other day, like with my husband, that if I have to say more than once or more than twice that, you know, this is something that you're doing and it bothers me, and you know, cut it out. If they still keep doing it, then the only other, I think, you know, kind of thing there is to do to kind of remedy the situation is to not talk as much, kind of pull away, let them get the sense that something is going on, something's wrong, where they might now start to question, is everything okay? And that's when you can say, well, not really. I've really not, you know, expressed to you how I feel about things or talked to you about certain situations just because because I've told you quite a few times now that I really don't want you to always give me your opinion and advice, and I have to keep telling you this, and you still keep doing it. So I'd rather not share things with you than get into an argument because you just can't stop giving me advice. Sometimes when you've been really nice, you've got to. Well, my mom, when I was younger, taught me probably one of the best quotes: be a lady first, then a bitch. And it's true. Be a lady, then a bitch. But what about when you've been a lady and now you're trying to be a little more, direct, but now they get angry with you? I mean, I kind of feel like then it's not worth it to have the relationship anymore. If you've been nice and you've been trying to get someone to understand your point of view with something and they're just not doing it, then sometimes it's better to not have that relationship than to be in a relationship that's emotionally taking a toll on you emotionally. What do you guys think? I know I'm not the only one that's been in a situation like this. And it's not just friends, and it's not just family. It could be people that you don't know. People are so opinionated now and so angry and aggravated that at least I, don't feel like I can talk about anything, even the simplest of things that I feel won't get me into an altercation or an argument. I feel like no matter what you say nowadays, no matter what you say, even if you're being kind and nice, someone else is so angry that it doesn't matter what you say. They're just ready to kill. They just see red like a bull. And it's unfortunate that our society has become this way so that we all feel like we're walking on eggshells. It's not the best feeling because we are social animals, and mammals. We all like to be social. We like to talk. We like to give our opinions. And what happens when that's taken away from you? Because everyone has become so argumentative. I shouldn't say everyone, but many people have become so argumentative that it's so hard to be around people because I'm just waiting for someone to just, start something. And people have become very confrontational too because they think they can. And I know that there's still good in this world, and I know that there's still good people in this world. And they, like me, are just trying to, get along as best they can and hope that things turn out for the best. I've got to tell you, I know someone who has a very large family, and this is a friend of my husband's that we've known, forever. And he must have, I think, at least 6 or 7 siblings. And they all do not get along. There are some that do, there are some that don't. And this particular man has gotten into lots of confrontations with some family members that he just does not get along with. And I remember him telling me that he just got to the point where he just could not deal with it anymore. He just couldn't deal with, before he would, see a particular family member, he felt anxious and nervous because he knew that no matter what happened, there was going to be a fight. For example, he would go to a family get-together, and let's say he and his brother, who, don't get along very well, were talking, and they were eating hot dogs and whatever, and the brother says, "Why do you like ketchup on your hot dog?" And the man would say, "I don't have a reason. I just like it." Well, bam, just like that, the brother's like, "Well, you always were different. You never went with the flow," and no. But you see what I mean? That's one of the reasons why this man stopped talking to him, because he was sick and tired of him always putting him down and always saying things. Now that is on that family member. How he is acting has to do with whatever has been going on in his life for him to be so angry and to take it out on other people. But that's my point. That's what's so unfortunate, that there are people in this world that you have to stop having a relationship with because they don't see what they're doing to you. And I've had to end relationships with some people where I felt that they were not, being good to me. I was friends with this one woman on and off for a long time. And she was very toxic. So was her husband. And I knew it. I knew it from the get-go. And it just never worked out. And I always knew kind of how she was, but kept giving her more and more chances. But yet every single time we would kind of reignite the flame, there was always something. And then she blamed me for doing something that was so outlandish that I would never even think to do. And then apparently some of her friends believed that I did it. And I was like, just, I didn't even know half these people. I wasn't even friends with them. And somehow, word got around that Julie did this. And I was just like, what are you... It didn't make any sense to me. It was almost as though she was being vindictive to me because, I don't know, maybe she was jealous of me. I don't know. But it got to the point where I was like, you know what? This is really bad for me. Like, I don't even know why I keep trying for things to work out. And that's just it. It's because I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm always trying to mend a... How can you mend a broken heart? Just always trying to make things better. And in the end, that got me in trouble for something that never happened. But it got me in trouble to where I always kept thinking the best in people. And, I know that this person can be good. I know this person can be good. And until I finally realized that she's not, and she's really messed up, and she's in her own world and doesn't see things how they are. There's a lot of stuff going on and missing. And this particular person will never know who she is or what she is because she's so troubled and so lost. And I'm not. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know what I can give. And so I finally just put an end to it because I realized that in the end, I am too good of a person to be surrounded by, toxic people and toxicity. And I love myself more than being around something like that. So the question I have then is, what do you do when you are around people that you don't realize at the time are toxic and are bringing you down without realizing it? What if you just don't realize what's happening? How do you get yourself out of it? How do you know that it's something that you need to steer clear of? How much hurt does someone have to go through? Well, there's warning signs. And in as much as not everybody knows that they're in the middle of it, sometimes there's like this breakthrough. You could be reading a book, or you could be on TikTok, or you could be, online, and you come across an article and you read it, and then you start to realize, oh my God, that's me. Like let's say you're reading an article and it says, how to spot toxic people. You're up late, you're like, I'll read this. And it starts saying, when people don't agree with you or they're trying to gaslight you, which is basically make you think that your feelings are invalid, like giving you the guilt trip. And you read all of these things and you're like, wait a minute, this sounds just like me. Is this true? Does this mean that this person that I'm thinking of that does all this is really toxic? And then you start to come to the realization that it is. And that maybe those feelings that you were having in your gut were really trying to tell you, I don't think that this person's for you. So there's a lot of great, websites out there, and friends or family can help you to spot it too. So what do you do though when, you have a really good friend, you've been friends forever, you love this person. There's always going to be something or some things about that person that just make you crazy. But because you love them, you accept it. But what do you do when you can't take it anymore? How do you speak to them? How do you talk to them without them getting upset when, let's say, that particular person gets upset over everything? How do you handle that? I don't know. I mean, I am definitely a sensitive person. But I think that if someone were to tell me that, I might react in not the most positive way, but then I might also say, okay, let's not get upset over this, and let's take a hard look into what this person's saying, and let's see if you really do these things, because they could be affecting your friendships and relationships with other people. How do you react to when maybe someone needs to tell you something about you and how they want it to stop? Do you get offended? Do you change? Do you maybe find the positivity in what it is that, is bothering them, where you could say, look, this is really pissing me off that this person just, called me out for how I'm behaving. However, I do have respect for the fact that they took the time, to tell me this, and that maybe they're not doing it to hurt me. It's obviously upsetting them that I'm acting a certain way or treating them a certain way. Let me really, look into this more, because maybe it is something that is not a positive thing about, my personality. There have been times when certain things about me have been brought up, whether by family or my husband, and I didn't overreact or get upset. I just took a deep look into myself and did realize, that some of these things that they're mentioning really are things that, can affect a person, and that maybe I should change, how, not change this personality, but just be cognizant that it is a personality trait that some people just are uncomfortable with, and that maybe it should be something that I change. So I'm talking about, giving the advice that when I was younger, and that how I learned, instead of just giving unsolicited advice, to ask first. So I think that it's important that when, you finally have let me tell you something. It comes easier for some people than others to just be able to talk to people about things that are bothering them about them. Some people, excuse me, some people can just be like, hey, listen, I need to tell you something. So this has been bothering me, and I really don't want you to get upset, but if I know you, you will. But I don't want you to, because it's not a bad thing. I just need to tell you that, blah, 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 blah. And some people might just come right out and just say it very matter-of-factly, and that's it. And then not care about how you feel about it, because they've been dealing with their feelings about it for longer than, you first finding out. And then there are people who might take a really long time to tell you how they feel about something. And then there are those that might tell you, like this other person, very matter-of-factly, but in a kinder, more kind of controlled way. What is the best thing that you find you can do? Are you very kind of in the person's face immediately and, hey, listen, I want to tell you something. You got to stop doing this. Or will it take you some time? And when you finally get the guts to finally say something, do you do it? Do you back down? Are you overly nice to where it might actually make them angry? I don't know. I think that if I ever fell into that genre again of needing to tell someone something, I would have to approach it much more matter-of-factly, because with this one person, it hasn't stopped. And it just, oh my God, it just continues. And I'm kind of now I don't know. I have to think of what it is that I really want from this relationship, and if I just need to deal with this person constantly giving me advice when I don't want it, or is that going to really, affect my relationship? I don't know. I have to see. But what do you think is the best route to take? Have you ever had to do this before? And if you haven't, have you any advice on how you might have to do something like this? Pick a particular person that you might have to talk to or tell, how would you be? How would you talk? I know that there's one person that I have given up trying to tell that you're being really annoying to me, and you really have to stop. I have gotten to the point where I just can't say anything anymore to that person, because, well, it's just too late, because this person is just not going to change. And no matter what I say to this person, it's always an argument. It's like, oh no, listen, you have to stop thinking this, you have to stop thinking that. And then they just are like, no, this is what I think. But it just has gotten to the point where now I just listen and I pacify. I don't even though I want to, I will not open my mouth or say anything, because it's either an argument or they're always right. They don't see anything outside of their rightness. That's just how some people are. But this is not a person I am willing to end a relationship with over. I think that's what it all depends on, like how important is this person in your life? Are you willing to sacrifice not having them in your life anymore because, well, they're a pain in the ass, Like, I know I could be a pain in the ass too. I know that. But I also have some really great traits also. It's not like I'm just a pain in the ass and that's the end of that. No, that's just one of the wonderful parts of my personality. I'm a very giving person, and that will never end, no matter how much of a shit world and shit people we have living in it. I'm just curious though, what would happen if you never said anything to someone that's just making you crazy? Would you explode on them? And is that really the best thing to do? People who hide how they feel might have a tendency of just one day exploding in your face and saying so many things to you that they have been holding on to, that it seriously affects your relationship. Which is why I don't think that it's good to harbor feelings. I think it's best to let somebody know how you feel right away, because you can salvage the relationship. Once you explode because you didn't want to hurt their feelings, you didn't want to say anything, well, you really did just hurt their feelings by exploding all over them, and now you're leaving them with all the pieces to pick up. And why didn't you tell me about this beforehand? Why is it that you are first telling me this now? All of these things that have been going on, you've been feeling this way for such a long time. I can't believe you've been feeling this way. You didn't say anything. Look, there's so many different ways that you can handle situations, but I don't think holding on to how you feel is the best way, because that's actually the worst thing you can do, not only for yourself, but for the other person. Think about what it's doing to you on like an emotional, mental basis. I mean, it could be really, bringing you down. And then when you finally do tell this person, imagine how they feel, knowing that this is how you felt for a year or longer, and they feel horrible that you've been carrying this around for so long, but now they're also pretty pissed off because you just didn't tell them or discuss it with them when they thought that you had a really good, close relationship and you talked about so many things. I think that one of the things about being a good friend, even a good family member, is to be able to communicate. Now, what if you are good at communicating, but your sister, your brother, your mother, your aunt, your uncle, what if they're not good at communicating? What if things don't bother them as much as it bothers you? Like my husband, Like I can tell my husband what he's done that's pissed me off, and, we'll just deal with it then. But I don't hold on to my feelings to the point where I'm about ready to kill somebody. I think that it's really important that you don't do that. I think it's important that the more you discuss with people and the faster you discuss these things with people, the better. It can actually enhance your relationship than make it worse. What do you guys think? Well, anyway, I do hope you have a really great Wednesday. Don't forget you can touch base with me, Nothing But Julie. I'm also on any and all platforms. You can listen to me on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, any and all podcast platforms. And also don't forget to check out my blog. I am at nothingbutjulie.wordpress.com. I hope you all have a really great weekend. Take care.